We're also honored to have some more very special guests with us this evening, and please be so kind when I say your name, stand if you will, maybe even wave so we can honor you with our applause. First, it is my privilege to let you know that our Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, is here. Would you please rise? Secretary Kobach has a very notable biography, but perhaps of greatest importance, I was told he is become a father again for the 5th time just about a week ago. Another girl, is that right? That makes 5, I'm told. Congratulations, sir. Next we have Representative Connie O'Brien. Connie is a member of the House of Representatives in the 42nd District. Let's give her applause. Both Ed and Connie O'Brien have worked with Kansans for Life for many years and are the parents of 11 children.
Congratulations.
And next we have Representative Charles Macheers. Could you please rise, sir? Not only is Charles a dedicated family man, a patriot, a private practice attorney, he's the state representative in the 39th District. We're delighted to have you here too as well. We're also honored to have Brandon Smith with us tonight. Brandon began serving as the policy director for Governor Brownback just last month. Thank you for being here. Since 2011, he's worked with the conservative think tank, the Federalist Society for Law and Public Policy Studies in Washington, D.C., and he's grateful for the opportunity to serve here in his home state. Join me again in honoring these guests with our applause. I also have the privilege of inviting Senator Garrett Love, the Republican from Montezuma, to come forward and share a few words. As he makes his way here, you need to know that Senator Love is a husband and a father, a sixth-generation Kansas, a small business owner, and he's the youngest ever elected to the Kansas Senate. Not only that, Senator Love is the lead sponsor of Kansas Senate Bill 95, the Unborn Child Protection from Dismemberment Abortion Act, which passed first in the nation.
Thank you, and thank you all for your support of the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence. It's a great evening with a great turnout, and I'm glad to be here with you. But we do make a lot of decisions in the Capitol in Topeka, and one thing that I noticed from my first day in office is we hear most from the people that are impacted the most by the decisions that we're making. And there's one problem when it comes to the innocent lives of thousands of unborn babies across the state, and that problem is that they can't speak for themselves. And that's why we appreciate groups like the Pregnancy Care Center, many other groups, many individuals across the state who do speak for those babies, and I'm proud to do that in the Kansas Senate. But protecting the most defenseless among us has always been a priority of mine. It's always been something very important to me. But this last year, it did become a little more important to me when I gained a new title, as was said, and which is also my favorite title, and that's Dad. I remember the very first time I saw a picture of our baby girl. She was at 11 weeks, completely defenseless, and so very precious. The next sonogram was right at the very end of session last year in May. She was at a point of 19 weeks. That's when we first found out she was a girl. And those first pictures of our daughter, Abigail Marie Love, are so precious to us, where she had arms, legs, she smiled, she frowned, hiccuping, she had a heartbeat, and she was moving all over the place. And I think it is images like those, seeing sonograms on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, where young people in my generation are realizing that's a baby. I think 30, 40 years ago it wasn't that way. And the people now, I think, see that. But you can imagine kind of the impact on me when I was realizing that babies at this point, between 11 and 20 weeks, were being killed by having their arms and legs ripped off through dismemberment abortion. And I know it's disgusting, it's very gruesome, but it was going on every day in Kansas. There was about 600 of them done. So that's when I'd set out to try to end that with the help of a lot of good friends, including Representative O'Brien, Representative Macheers are back here with us. Secretary of State Kobach helped as well. And just as of a week and a half ago, Governor Brownback signed it into law, and we did become the first in the nation to end that. There's already several states that are following our lead. We have been a leader when it comes to life, when it comes to protecting people and protecting lives, and that's why I was glad to sponsor it. But really wanted to say, though, groups like the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence, that's really where I think is a more important role of helping these women as they're making important decisions in their lives, helping them in terms of making these decisions, and when they have the baby, helping them raise them up. I went on to Facebook, speaking of that, and just saw a couple, let me pull it up here, saw a couple comments from people that had come in the last few months. They left reviews on Facebook, and one of them was, the PCC has been a lifesaver for my family and me. The wonderful and friendly volunteers and staff that helped me become a better parent by offering lessons. I've started to make friends through a mom's group. pull up one more here. Bridget, Sarah, and all the amazing staff at PCC have truly been a blessing to my family. When times were tough and our budget tight, PCC provided hope, as well as diapers, clothes, and baby food. And I think as we talk about protecting life, we need to protect life. We need to help these individuals who are in hard spots, and that's exactly what you're doing today. That's why we're here, and so I'm glad to be able to join you guys, and thank you again for being here.
I consider it a tremendous honor to introduce Bridget Smith, the Executive Director of the Pregnancy Care Center. I've had the privilege of getting to know Bridget and her husband Jim over the past couple of years, and she has a fantastic heart and an amazing story, and God is using both in this very special ministry. Bridget and Jim have 5 children and 6 grandchildren. She loves the Royals and the Jayhawks, and she's especially fond of serving here in this community. So please join me in welcoming Bridget Smith.
Good evening. I have the privilege of standing on a step because I'm smaller than any of the other speakers, so Pastor whispered to me, watch your step. He knows me well. I just want to say how exciting it is for me to be at this vantage point and see a room full of individuals who share the same heart as we do at the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence. People who care about protecting life and preserving families. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Before I share more about the ministry, I want to take a moment to thank our table hosts. Without each one of you and your hard work and commitment, this room would not be full. I want to acknowledge that since this is our first major banquet, we realize there are some definite areas that need to be fine-tuned. And we are so thankful that you have been willing to work with us through this process. I also want to thank our many volunteers who give countless hours to build relationships and show Jesus' love to the women God brings through our doors. And to you, our donors, thank you for partnering with us in furthering the mission of the Pregnancy Care Center. It has been such a blessing for me to join all of you in the work that God is doing at the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence. For those of you who are new to PCC, I want to share just a little bit about the center and what we do. God planted the center in Lawrence 10 years ago. From that point forward, at just the right time, He's brought individuals to volunteer or to give financially to help further the mission of showing Jesus' love to women who find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy. I believe that it is no accident that you are here this evening. God wants you to be a part of what we're doing at the Pregnancy Care Center. This year's theme, Protecting Life, Preserving Families, was chosen because the vision we have for our center includes ministering to the fathers as well. All of the services we provide are free of charge and include pregnancy tests, sonograms, and options counseling. Options counseling is a time when we listen to the clients. We learn about what they may be feeling and the concerns and fears they have because of the pregnancy. Then we compassionately provide accurate information in regards to the challenges of parenting, the facts about adoption, and the spiritual, emotional, and physical risks of abortion. Our desire is for women to choose life for her unborn baby. However, each woman is treated with dignity and respect regardless of the path chosen. When I first started at PCC, I thought we would have one opportunity to speak hope into the lives of our clients. I now realize that options counseling we provide is just the start of a relationship our staff and volunteers develop with our clients. Very rarely do we only see the clients once, regardless of the decision they make for their pregnancy. For the women who choose to parent, we offer educational programs through the Earn While You Learn program. The Earn While You Learn program allows clients to earn baby bucks that then can be spent in our Buttons and Bows boutique, which is stocked with tangible items they need for their baby. If you choose to support PCC, you will be joining us in empowering moms and dads to be the best possible parent they can be. We do this not by handouts, but by providing classes that educate our clients about the stages of pregnancy, infant development, and parenting. For the women who choose to place their baby for adoption, we refer them to an attorney and/or the Lifeline agency in Topeka. Oftentimes, the attorney or Lifeline staff will meet with the clients at the center because the center has become a safe haven for them. For the women who have had an abortion, we offer Saved One Bible Study. Through this 12-week study, we have seen God bring healing and restoration into the woman's life, oftentimes healing them from guilt and shame that they have carried for years. We also offer our clients the opportunity to participate in group studies, which includes the 7 Areas of Life Training Bible Study, Mending the Soul, which is a Bible study for women who have experienced any type of abuse, Mom Talk, which is a network support group for moms, and our parenting classes. Rather than take time and go through the statistics from 2014, I want to point out, if you haven't seen them, we do have them listed inside your program. We at PCC are excited about what God is doing in the lives of our clients and how He has already gone before us in the vision He has given us for 2015. In 2015, our hope is to increase awareness of the center at the local universities. During the spring semester, God has already opened the doors to help us boost our presence on KU campus. We have a practicum student who has been doing research and is examining ways that we can better reach college-age women. And also on Monday and Tuesday of this week, we were at Wesco Beach talking to college-age women and men about the services we provide at PCC. Through these efforts, it is our desire that more and more students become aware of PCC and that when faced with an unplanned pregnancy, our center will be the first place these college students come. Last November, we worked with 55 women, and 26 of those were visiting the center with the father of their baby. The board and I were preparing for our strategic planning meeting, and those numbers were the confirmation we needed to consider a fatherhood program at the center. A survey titled "The Guys for Life" reveals that 85% of abortion-minded men, when mentored by another guy, choose life instead of abortion. And 81% of women choose life if they feel they are supported by their boyfriend. These are just 2 examples of why we feel it's important to plan a more organized effort to minister to the fathers who come to the center in support of their girlfriends or wife. We want to come alongside men and help them turn their hearts towards their children and become the dad their children need them to be. Perhaps some of you men just felt a nudge of the Holy Spirit when I mentioned the fatherhood program. We are seeking male volunteers who would be interested in being involved in this aspect of the center. If you're interested, please make a note on your pledge card and I will contact you within the next couple weeks. In closing, I want to say that while we spend time organizing programs, monitoring and talking about our statistics, and holding wild and crazy fundraising meetings, what is truly the most important to me, our board of directors, and our PCC volunteers is the relationships we build with our clients. At the end of the day, what matters to me is that women, men, and babies who come through the doors of PCC will leave feeling loved and full of hope for the days to come. My desire for tonight is that as you become acquainted with our center, that you will want to join us in showing Jesus' love to women and their men who are facing an unplanned pregnancy. At this time, I want to introduce you to a brave soul who has agreed to share his story with us. Topher, if you'd stand up, please. Topher Eneke, he loves his new title as Francesca's father. And then another client of ours, Isis Franklin, she's unable to be with us tonight, but she is now known as Dallas's mommy. Without further ado, here's their story.
And now for our keynote speaker. As you see listed there in your program, Seth Gruber is a recent Westmont graduate and Southern California boy who's already made a mark in the pro-life movement. He received national attention for challenging his college on its neutral stance on abortion. Seth has also founded a pro-life student group and personally funded an abortion debate on campus. He's committed his life to engaging the culture on abortion. Seth is on staff at Life Training Institute, a pro-life organization focused on training pro-life advocates to persuasively defend their views in the marketplace of ideas by clearly presenting the pro-life position.
The work that pregnancy care clinics do, I don't need to tell you, is obviously amazing, but it's also close and special to my heart because my mother was the founder and director of a pregnancy care clinic in LA County that she started in the late 80s. Called Living Alternatives, and then she stepped down from that role when she had me. But me and my family continued to support a local pregnancy care clinic as I grew up, so I was a little tyke running around door to door asking people to support our local pregnancy care clinic. So I've grown up seeing the beautiful work that pregnancy care clinics do, and so I know the passion, the energy, and the time that the staff at pregnancy care clinics put into loving unborn children and their mothers. And the staff at the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence is superb and is amazing and has been so welcoming. So thank you. Bridget asked me to say that, by the way. She didn't, but if she had, I would have said it anyways. So I'm going to tell you 3 things tonight that you must do if you want to be an effective ambassador for the unborn. In a pluralistic society like today, these 3 things will enable you to preserve life from conception to natural death. Now, before I tell you what these 3 things are, and before I emphasize the importance of these 3 things, I want to read you a quote from a professor at Westmont College, which is the university I graduated from last year. It's a small Christian liberal arts college in Santa Barbara. And he gives his 2-sentence opinion on how he believes a college, a Christian college like Westmont, should think about and deal with the abortion issue. And I want to read it to you. He says, "The moral particularities of abortion are so fine-textured and open-textured that Manichaean distinctions about being pro or anti-abortion strike me as ethically obtuse. Our community and our students are best served when our chapel speakers invite us to tarry in the liminal spaces of complexity." Now, as much as I wish I could tell you that that was just a parody of professorial thinking, I'm afraid it's much more a window into the reality of the deep, deep-seated confusion that is held by citizens of our country today on the abortion issue. A generation of students is being raised and has been raised, and many of your children have been raised in this culture that tells them that abortion is merely a privacy issue, is merely a woman's issue, best left to woman's own conscience, and who are we to make moral judgments? And I can testify to the moral confusion in today's culture, and certainly in today's youth and today's students, because as Pastor Steve said, I'm the founder and former president of the Right to Life Club at Westmont College, where I funded and planned an abortion debate on campus between Scott Klusendorf, my boss and the director of Life Training Institute, and Nadine Strawson, who's the former president of the ACLU, no friend to pro-lifers. Also while at Westmont, I conducted educational displays on campus to challenge my university's neutral stance on abortion, or rather, their refusal to take any stance at all. Also while a college student, I completed a 3-year internship with a pro-life organization called the Center for Bioethical Reform, whose headquarters are in Orange County. And while there, I was trained how to engage in pro-life activism effectively and courageously. And I'm now part of a rigorous pro-life apologetics training regimen with Life Training Institute, where I'm reading and mastering the best material out there. Now, I don't say that to focus on myself, but merely to tell you that I can testify and have seen the deep, deep confusion in our culture today on the abortion issue. And so what can we do about it? What can we do as ambassadors for Christ to make a thoughtful and winsome defense of our pro-life views in the public square? So I believe we can empower ourselves as ambassadors for Christ to preserve and protect unborn life. And you all and we all are ambassadors for Christ. And I want to train you how to be an ambassador for the unborn, and therefore a more effective ambassador for Christ. And this is significant and this is important because the staff at the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence are not just in a battle for women's hearts, though they are. They're also in a battle for women's minds. There is a worldview component to this issue, isn't there? That's very significant and that we need to talk more about. If the women and men who walk through the doors at the Women's Pregnancy Center in Lawrence believe in moral truths, believe in objective moral truths, and believe that they should get in line with those truths, then their child will most likely live. If, however, the mothers and women walking through the doors at the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence believe that truth is merely a subjective preference, which we decide on a whim of emotion, then her child is in grave danger. So pregnancy care clinics don't just deal with people's hearts and emotions, they also deal with their minds and with truth. And so that's why it's significant and so important for us as ambassadors for Christ who are pro-life to know how to defend our pro-life convictions in the public square. So as ambassadors for the unborn, I believe we can protect and preserve life by doing three things. And those three things are, we have to engage. Secondly, we have to equip ourselves to engage. And thirdly, we have to be willing to step up and make painful sacrifices, personal sacrifices for the pro-life movement. So firstly, we have to engage. The forces against us are scary and huge. And we are swimming upstream to culture. But surrender is not an option. Now, I was reading Proverbs 31 this last year, and I wasn't looking for the perfect wife, actually. And I was reading the earlier parts of Proverbs 31, the earlier verses, which talk about something else. And Proverbs 31:8 says to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of the destitute. And pro-lifers love that verse, and that's a perfect verse, and that's a beautiful verse. But I was thinking more about it, and I was going deeper with it. And I was praying through it, and I realized that we, as Christians, apart from the cross and apart from Christ's salvific and redemptive work on the cross, are also those who cannot speak up for themselves. But Christ spoke up for us, and as 1 John 2:1 says, "My dear children, I write this to you so that you will not sin. But if anybody does sin, we have one who speaks to the Father in our defense, Jesus Christ, the righteous one." So, if in our sin we were utterly incapable of speaking up for ourselves and acting as our own advocate, but Christ came and spoke up for us, then how can we as Christians not also speak up for the most defenseless and vulnerable victims of our society today, the unborn? So we have to engage. Surrender is not an option. Now, Westmont College has been mentioned to you and their refusal to take a position on abortion. This is a Christian college, and I loved my time there and grew immensely while I was there. But they are not engaging on this issue. And that's something that we as Christians cannot afford to do because children's lives are on the line. Now, many of you are familiar with Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and many of you know his story. And a few years ago, an author and Christian apologist by the name of Eric Metaxas wrote a biography on Bonhoeffer, which if you haven't read, I recommend it to you. It's called Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy. And Bonhoeffer had a close friend by the name of Eberhard Bethge. And Eric Metaxas quotes Bonhoeffer's friend Eberhard Bethge in this book. And he's talking about the current predicament of the confessing church in Germany. And I want to read you a short section from it tonight. This is Eberhard Bethge speaking. Bonhoeffer introduced us in 1935 to the problem of what we today call political resistance. The levels of confession and of resistance could no longer be kept neatly apart. The escalating persecution of the Jews generated an increasingly intolerable situation, especially for Bonhoeffer himself. We now realized that mere confession, no matter how courageous, inescapably meant complicity with the murderers, even though there would always be new ways and acts of refusing to be co-opted, and even though we would preach Christ alone, Sunday after Sunday. During the whole time, the Nazi state never considered it necessary to prohibit such preaching. Why should it? Thus, we were approaching the borderline between confession and resistance. And if we did not cross this border, our confession was going to be no better than cooperation with the criminals. And so it became clear where the problem lay for the confessing church. We were resisting by way of confession, but we were not confessing by way of resistance. And I believe that that is the state where much of the church is today on the abortion issue. We're pro-life, we believe abortion is wrong, and we write a monthly check every now and then, and our resistance has stopped by way of confession, by just confessing what we believe. And Beth is saying that that was no better for them than complicity and cooperation with the criminals. So we cannot just confess, resist by way of confession, we have to confess by way of resistance. Our confession and our pro-life convictions need to manifest themselves through the actions we're taking to defend unborn children. So we have to engage. If we want to be effective ambassadors for the unborn, to preserve and protect life, we have to engage. Surrender is not an option. The second thing we need to do is we have to equip ourselves to engage. Our willingness to engage on the abortion issue means nothing if we're not equipped to do so effectively, compassionately, and courageously. Just as we should always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks us for the hope that we have in Jesus, so too should we always be prepared to provide an answer to those who ask us, why would we be opposed to a woman's issue like abortion? And I believe there's three things we need to do well to equip ourselves to engage. The firstly is we have to clarify the nature of moral reasoning. And this is what I mean by that. Pro-lifers aren't claiming that abortion is wrong because we dislike abortion. That's not our claim. We're not claiming that abortion is wrong because, well, we have personal qualms against it. The pro-life claim is that abortion is wrong because it violates rational moral principles. That abortion is wrong because it ends the life of a defenseless unborn human person. We are making objective moral claims about the nature of reality, not subjective preference claims. Now, I'm going to make two claims to you right now, and I think everyone in the room will immediately recognize the difference between these two claims. Vanilla ice cream is better than chocolate ice cream. Now, I hope I didn't just split the room. The second claim is this: it is wrong to torture toddlers for fun. Now, I think we all recognize the difference between those two claims, don't we? The first one is merely a preference claim. If I prefer vanilla ice cream and you prefer chocolate ice cream, no one's wrong. It's just a preference. But when I say it's wrong to torture toddlers for fun, I doubt any of you would say, maybe for you, Seth. Maybe that violates your rational moral principles, but not mine. No, we recognize that that's an objective moral claim about the nature of reality, that it is always wrong to torture toddlers for fun. It's wrong at all times, for all people, and in all places. But this is the type of reasoning we hear in the abortion issue a lot, isn't it? So when we say abortion is wrong, unfortunately, the pro-choice movement, and sometimes our pro-choice friends, they just hear, oh, pro-lifers don't like abortion. But that's not the claim we're making. We have to clarify, as pro-lifers, what type of claim we're making when we say abortion is wrong. Because of the moral relativism that is so steeped in our culture, most people just hear, they don't like abortion. But that's not the claim we're making. Now, many of you have seen the bumper sticker that says, don't like abortion, don't have one. Well, what if instead we just said, don't like spousal abuse, don't beat your wife? But that doesn't make any sense because we recognize that those things are wrong regardless of one's willingness to get an abortion or not, or one's willingness to beat their wife or not. Those things are objective moral wrongs. So those are the type of claims we're making when we say abortion is wrong. Now, I believe that one of the main reasons that many people in our culture today continue to think about abortion as merely a preference claim is because the majority of people have not seen abortion. The majority of people in our culture today have not seen what abortion is and does to unborn children. And that's why I believe that showing imagery of what abortion looks like is so important. Now, we're not going to show you any abortion victim photography tonight, but I want to speak to the importance of that, of using that as a tool to change minds, change hearts, and save lives. But the other type of important imagery and photography that we can use to change minds and change hearts and convince people that abortion is not just a subjective preference issue is by using embryoscopy footage, which is amazing footage that we have now of the baby through all stages of pregnancy. And because the amniotic sac is clear, we can have a very small camera and we can see the baby yawn and react to light in all its different stages of development. So I'm going to show you a 2-minute video clip right now of first trimester footage of the unborn in the womb. And it's powerful, and I want to make you aware of it as a tool in the earlier stages of the pregnancy. The unborn child cannot survive without the mother's sustenance. But if degree of dependency is morally relevant in dictating human value, then we would be forced to concede that all of those dependent on insulin, heart pacemakers, kidney machines, life support, are all non-humans because they are dependent on something without which they cannot continue to live. And we don't like where that goes, because then we can justify killing born people with that reasoning. So those are the 4 differences: size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency, SLED, between the embryonic human being that you once were in your mother's womb and the adults that we are today, and none of them are morally relevant to the abortion debate. So that's the pro-life case from science and philosophy. And once you understand this case, you can make it in really a minute or less, like this. Scientifically, pro-life advocates argue that from the earliest stages of development, the unborn child is a distinct, living, and whole human being. The science of embryology confirms this, and any college textbook on embryology will back up this fact. Philosophically, pro-lifers argue that there is no essential or value-giving difference between the embryonic human being that you once were and the adult that you are today that would justify killing you at that earlier stage. Differences in size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency are not good reasons for saying that you had no right to life then, but you do now. There you go. There's the case for life from the philosophical and scientific front. And once we understand this case, we can make it in a minute or less, and we can back up our views and therefore become better ambassadors for the unborn. So if we want to equip ourselves to engage, we have to clarify the nature of moral reasoning, that we are making objective claims about the nature of reality. Secondly, we have to clarify the one and only question that matters in the abortion debate, which is, what is the unborn? And the burden of proof is on those assuming the unborn is inhuman. But we're also ready to prove that the unborn is human by doing the third thing we need to do to equip ourselves to engage, make the case for life from science and philosophy. So if we want to be effective ambassadors for the unborn to preserve and protect life, we have to engage. Secondly, we have to equip ourselves to engage by doing the 3 things that I just said. And lastly, we have to challenge ourselves and others to step up and make painful sacrifices for the pro-life movement. My friend and colleague, Greg Cunningham, says that there are more people working full-time to kill babies than there are working full-time to save them. That is because killing babies is very profitable, while saving them is very costly. So costly that a large number of people who say they oppose abortion are not lifting a finger to stop the killing. And those that do lift a finger do just enough to salve the conscience, but not enough to stop the killing. A stinging rebuke to us as Christians and to the pro-life movement, but I believe he's right. So that raises this question: what is our duty to the unborn. I believe our duty to the unborn as Christians and ambassadors for Christ is to love our unborn neighbor and his or her mother. But that begs the question, is the unborn our neighbor? I believe that the case for life I presented tonight proves that the unborn is a distinct, living, and whole human being and should therefore be granted the same value that Jesus put on loving our neighbors. But sometimes it's costly to love our neighbors, isn't it? Sometimes we have to make sacrifices. Sometimes it hurts at great personal cost. And I believe the parable of the Good Samaritan illustrates this beautifully and perfectly. We all know the parable. A man is traveling on the road, and he gets beaten, he gets robbed, he gets left for dead. As he's laying on the side of the road, bleeding out, two men walk by at different times, two religious men, as we know, a Levite and a priest. Now, I think it's safe to say that the Levite and the priest were opposed to street mugging. I think it's safe to say that the Levite and the priest felt bad for the bleeding victim. I wouldn't have beaten him up. I wish he hadn't gotten beaten up. But we know how they acted. Scripture says that they walked by on the other side. More important religious things to do, probably. But I think it's safe to say that the Levite and the priest felt compassion, at least. They had at least had a semi-functioning moral conscience. They felt compassion. But they didn't show compassion, did they? It was the Good Samaritan, the bleeding victim's natural enemy, who not just felt compassion for him, but showed compassion, took active measures to illustrate that compassion. He bandaged the man's wounds. He took him to an innkeeper. He said, "Nurse this man back to health, and I have to go. When I come back, if any other costs have accumulated, I'm going to pay for those also." The Good Samaritan made sacrifices of his time, his energy, and his money to do what? To love his neighbor well, to love his neighbor lavishly. And so I believe that's the same thing that we have to do for unborn children. Are we prepared to love our unborn neighbors in the same way that the Good Samaritan radically loved the bleeding victim? Now, many of you are familiar with the film Schindler's List. Many of you know the story of Oskar Schindler. And if you've seen the film, the last scene that Oskar Schindler appears in is a powerful scene. The war has just ended, and Oskar Schindler is surrounded by 1,100 Jews who owe Oskar Schindler their very lives. Why? Well, Oskar Schindler was a very successful businessman, and he was also part of the Nazi Party. And when he saw what was happening, he used his own money to buy Jews off the Nazi death camp lists and employ them in his factory to save their lives from the butchering that was happening. So the war's ended, and he's surrounded by 1,100 Jews whose very lives he saved, which turned into generations that he saved. And he begins to weep. And he looks at the pin on his jacket, and he goes, "This is gold. I could have sold this. I could have saved two, at least one more. Why did I keep this pin?" And he looks at his car as he's weeping, and he says, "Why did I keep my car? I could have sold it and saved at least 10 more. Why did I keep my car? I could have saved one more." And this is a man who went to the wall to love his neighbors well, who gave away everything he had to buy Jews off the death camp lists. And one of his friends and Jews approaches him and embraces him. And Oskar Schindler looks at him and goes, "You don't know how much I wasted. You don't know how much money I blew. I could have done so much more. I could have saved one more." So I want to ask you the question tonight. Are we taking our Holocaust in 2015 as seriously as Oskar Schindler took his? Because if we truly do, there is something that we can do tonight to love our unborn neighbors well, to love our unborn neighbors lavishly, like Jesus would have us love our neighbors. I'm going to ask the table hosts to distribute the donation envelopes to each member at each table. And as you do so, and as they go around, I want to ask you for two things tonight. And I'll give you a few seconds to pass them around. Okay, I'm going to assume most of them have been passed around. Like I said, I want to ask you for two things tonight. Firstly, I want to ask you to make a sacrificial gift. I want to ask you to make a donation tonight that, frankly, hits the pocketbook. And if you're wondering what kind of number that is, whatever number you think is generous, just double it and it's sacrificial. And you know what this sacrificial gift does? This one-time sacrificial gift helps fund the vision that Bridget talked about. It helps fund the vision that they want to implement in this next year, which includes more college outreach, which includes focusing more money and time and energy on the ministry for men, and which generally just includes the costs that accumulate in saving babies' lives. Consider that it costs around $1,200 to save one baby from abortion. That includes all that goes into that. Sonogram or ultrasound, follow-up meetings, everything that goes into that. So if that figure helps you at all, then please do. So I want to ask you to commit to a one-time sacrificial gift, to love your unborn neighbors lavishly in a way that Jesus would have us do. Secondly, I want to ask you to commit to a monthly amount. Now, many of you are already committed to supporting the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence on a monthly basis, and I want to say thank you. I want to say God bless you. Thank you for giving your money to support such important work. But if you're not, I would like to ask you to commit to a monthly amount. And what does this do? This keeps the lights on. This keeps the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence open. Because unfortunately, abortion clinics can afford to stay open a lot longer and more frequently. And both gifts are vital to saving babies, to changing minds and changing hearts, and impacting lives for Christ, as that video so powerfully illustrated. I also want to make you aware of a different way that you can give tonight, through the tax credit program. And there's materials in your bulletin on more about the tax credit program. And you can also see Marvin Heinbach, if he can raise his hand, right there afterwards if you have more questions about that. And that's another optional way that you can give tonight. And this was a program, this tax credit program was awarded to the Pregnancy Care Center of Lawrence and their involvement in it. And it goes through the end of the 2015 tax year. So if you would like to know more about that, you can see the materials on your table or talk to Marvin. So those are the two things that I want to ask you for tonight as you step out in faith to sacrificially love your unborn neighbors. So let's do just that together right now in the next few minutes. Let's sacrificially love our unborn neighbors tonight by taking the next few minutes to fill out our donation cards.